Oh, what do I want out of the sequel? Honestly, just two things. Invisible Jet, explicit bondage themes. They're right there in the origins of the character. Come on, let's do it. Wonder Woman 1984. Yeah, I busted the bracers out. So, trailer has dropped, which does mean, okay, Doctor Who normally would have been a Sunday thing. I've rejiggered things shifted around. I didn't have stuff in time. I was going to do it Monday. I forgot that Wonder Woman was dropping. So things go back to normal on Sunday again. So, this trailer is a much better look. We had like little glimpses. There have been little things here and there that we've heard about this film up to this point. Obviously, the title is the year that it takes place in, so we've known it's going to be a period piece. We've known about the cast and what roles they're playing. So there isn't a ton secretive about this, and there actually isn't a lot of plot in this trailer. It's mostly vibe and feel and sort of getting a taste of some of the characters. And for the most part, I like most of what I see. I have some concerns, but we'll come back to those. So obviously, Gal Gadot she has a phenomenal presence in this role. She is really, really good. For this part, that was stellar casting they came up with. I really like that the color is much more vibrant in general. The whole thing feels more colorful than a lot of the original Wonder Woman film did, but especially like her outfit, the reds and the blues really pop, and I'm digging the heck out of that. So that's very cool to see. I'm loving the way that the lasso is getting used. That makes me so happy because I'm not saying Wonder Woman can't have a sword, but like the sword is not her iconic weapon. The lasso is her iconic weapon. And I'm loving seeing so many cool things being done, like using it to yank or something and pull herself so she's like propelled forward and she's sort of whipping it around and snapping at people. And for God's sake, she was swinging off lightning bolts with it. That's amazing. That is so cool. Loving that. Oh, and she even took off the tiara and whipped that around. Oh, that makes me happy. That makes me very, very happy. We got our first glance of the woman who will become the villain, Cheetah, being played by Kristen Wiig, and she was fine. Which, if you know how much I kind of inherently don't like Kristen Wiig, that's actually a really big compliment from me to her, because she grates on me quick and harshly. So the little glimpses I got here, seems sound so far. Seems like she has some sort of established relationship with Diana at the start of things that presumably is going to go sour. We've also got Pedro Pascal as Maxwell Lord. Boy, yeah. You're really getting the vibe of this guy just thinks he runs everything off Maxwell Lord, and that's a good fit. And especially if we're talking like 80s sort of tycoon-ish, he's a good character to use if you're going for that sort of feel and vibe. The whole 1980s thing, I'm not negative on, but I'm neutral on. I think on the one hand, like, I'm kind of over 80s nostalgia right now because, we've had a couple of very hefty doses of it in the last few years. We have now 3 seasons of Stranger Things. We had both It movies. We had Thor Ragnarok. I feel like things either set in the 80s or deliberately trying to evoke the 80s vibe. I don't want to say they've fully run their course, but that in and of itself isn't particularly novel to me at this point. That doesn't necessarily make it a knock against the film. I'm going to be curious to watch it and see how it justifies being set in the 80s specifically. It seemed pretty obvious just for narrative purposes it was going to have to be set before any of the quote-unquote modern-day stuff we've seen of Wonder Woman, be it BVS or Justice League. But I do wonder if they're going to come up with a reason for it to be the 80s specifically as opposed to any other time period beyond just, the visual palette and the look of it. Which, again, isn't a bad reason to set it in that decade, but it is kind of like I've seen it quite a bit lately, actually, now that you mention it. So there's one character that is back, and this makes me very nervous, and that's Steve Trevor. Now, before I get into any of my complaints and concerns, I should really point out that I was phenomenally wrong about the original Wonder Woman. I thought those trailers did not look good at all, and I called that movie was going to stink, and it didn't, and it was great. And I was so happy to be wrong. As much as I so often sort of zero in and like predict what could go wrong, I do not want to be right about that. I'm not someone who takes a lot of pleasure in I told you so, when instead of getting to say I told you so, I could have just had something enjoyable. I would much rather have that. So, you know, I've already been proven a fool once for predicting any kind of that might not work thing with Wonder Woman. So, you know, keep that in mind. So as far as Steve Trevor goes, how that works for me is probably going to really come down to how he comes back. But I'm still a bit irritated that it does seem like however he's back, he does actually appear to be back. However, logistically they figured out that happening, and I still am going to say it's going to end up tying into the villains, and she'll probably lose him again at the end of it. I mean, maybe not, but like, this inherently kind of undermines his sacrifice. Like, it can't help but do that just because he chose to die. In a really great scene where like he's all triumphant because he's got hold of the plane, it sort of sinks in on him that he is going to die. It was such a good scene. And now he's going to be back. And again, like, maybe it's not, like, real or it's forced by, like, who knows what the circumstances are going to be. And that might help. But, like, just in general, as much as I liked him in the part and I love their chemistry, I'm like, the way they closed him out was really good and really fitting. And I don't want to see that undercut just to have the chemistry back. So that's one point of concern. The other one, this is less a point of concern, more of a piece of wonderment to me, which is that she appears to be operating fairly openly. Like at one point she's dealing with a military convoy, so okay, maybe that's not in public, but the military should know who she is. At one point it looks like she's in the White House, so the government should definitely know where she is. And she's also in full outfit and doing her thing in the mall, which would have, you know, the general public. And it just makes me wonder if DC is just throwing up their hands and completely abandoning any pretense of continuity with either Batman v Superman or Justice League, both of which pretty firmly established that she was not known after the events of the original Wonder Woman. That she wasn't active, she wasn't seen, people didn't realize that she was around doing stuff. And for her to be operating this publicly, I figure it's one of two things. Either they're going to have a really contrived reason for why she still somehow doesn't get, you know, noted down and properly recorded, or they're just going to go, heck with it, and not address it, because at this point the continuity of the DC films is completely and utterly broken. And that's not even necessarily a complaint on my part, because I don't really care if anything keeps in continuity with Man of Steel or BVS or Justice League, and I actually even kind of enjoyed Justice League, but I don't really care if anything keeps in continuity with those three films. So I think it's probably to the betterment of any released film going forward that if it's going to acknowledge continuity at all, it's very minor, it's very tacitly, and to otherwise just forge its own continuity for the most part. And if it's going to contradict something that was in those earlier movies, heck with it. If the story's good, then just do it. And I suspect they're more likely to be doing that than, you know, coming up with something like the friggin' Men in Black neuralizer to wipe everyone's memory and account for why nobody knew who Wonder Woman was at the start of Batman v Superman. I really hope they don't do that, because, like, I don't think they have to. Like, people like me will notice that it's not in continuity. But again, I'll notice, but I also don't care. So I figure of the percentage of people who will actually really massively notice, which I'm calling as a minority of movie-going audiences, most, maybe half of them will actually care that it's not in continuity. So I don't think that's worth trying to sort that out. But overall, the music's really cool in this too. I dug that. So overall, I'm definitely going into this feeling better about it than with the original Wonder Woman, if for no other reason than this has the track record of that first Wonder Woman movie, which I really enjoyed. And they brought back Patty Jenkins is back. Oh, looks like we're gonna get more Themyscira. That's cool. I'm totally on board for that. There's a lot of neat images, and just watching Gal Gadot just do her thing in this part, it really is inspiring. Like, I'm in awe watching her just be Wonder Woman. She really does embody this part about as well as Christopher Reeves embodied Superman, or Hugh Jackman embodied Wolverine, and Patrick Stewart embodied Professor X. It's just like, oh, man. Like, we may have to cast somebody else in this role at some point, but that's it right there. Pack up your bags. It's done. That's definitely the definitive screen version. She's really good for this. And I think I'll wrap it up on that. Few concerns, few questions, but for the most part, feeling pretty good about this, which is nice to feel about a DC movie. Because even the ones that I've enjoyed, I've usually been pretty skeptical of going in. I actually did enjoy Justice League. I was very skeptical of that going in. I enjoyed Aquaman. Was pretty skeptical of that going in. I enjoyed Wonder Woman. I thought it was gonna stink. But I cannot remember the last time, probably not since The Dark Knight Rises, have I gone in to a DC movie thinking based off trailers, I feel comfortable saying this will be pretty good. And that's nice. It's a good feeling. Wonder Woman 1984, full trailer. What'd you think about it? Whatever your thoughts are, drop something down in the comments. Let's talk about it. A bunch of stuff to do. Like, subscribe, support on Patreon. Consider it. Maybe. Share this around. And also, there's links to all sorts of stuff down below. I have merch. I've got social media stuff. I've got my P.O. Box address. If you feel like sending me something for the holidays, hey, why not? 'Tis the season. But you don't have to do any of it, folks. Because at the end of the day, you're the council. I'm just running the meetings. And until next time, this council is adjourned.